Dominic Henry says, looking forward to a big welcome from revered scribe at SW Boxing. Revered scribe. I can only wish to be talked of in such terms. Well, it looks like it might be live now. I think our audio is coming through on YouTube.
Oh shit.
If people can hear us while looking at a screen of Ben, Eubank and Hearn looking malevolent in the background, you let us know. Well, we don't have an intro apparently this week. Not sure quite what happened there. Mod Mother Quiver, I'm sure, is on the case. But this is SO Live, the most interactive show on boxing YouTube. And prayers up for Eamon Khan, my usual co-host. He's poorly at the moment, but we've drafted in. Eamon himself called it an upgrade, and I'm inclined to agree with him. It's Mr. SW Boxing himself, Mr. Steve Wellings. Steve, how you doing, mate?
I'm very well, Danny, thank you. I'm not sure about an upgrade on Eamon, to be honest, but I'll do my best on this Monday evening.
I'm sure your best will be more than good enough. Steve, it's been a long time. We were talking about this off air. This Friday is the 16th anniversary of Hatton Mayweather, which we were lucky enough, if that's the right word, to watch in the Balmoral Hotel in Belfast, alongside such luminaries as Howard Eastman, Robert McCracken, Brian Peters, I think, was there as well. I don't know. How much do you remember of that storied evening?
I remember it was in the Balmoral Hotel. You're quite right. John Duddy had fought Howard Eastman that night on a Brian Peters show. Paul David was there as well. Robert McCracken, as you mentioned, in the bowels of the Balmoral Hotel. 5 o'clock in the morning. Didn't tell my wife where I was. The car was parked who knows where. We managed to watch the fight. We managed to see history unfolding. My son's nearly 16 now. You are making me feel old tonight, Danny.
Mate, I feel old every day. So you're just getting a mere tip of the iceberg of my world. But yeah, we're here predominantly. Let me get the pleasantries out of the way first. Anyway, Seconds Out Live, most interactive show on boxing YouTube. Please do like, comment, and if you haven't already, give us a subscription as well. We're here predominantly to talk about the ongoing EUBANK versus BENN 3 saga, which was given the latest twist earlier this week when the British Boxing Board of Control rejected Conor Benn's application to box Eubank Jr. in the UK under their auspices. That doesn't mean the fight won't go ahead. Eddie Hearn still seems very keen to get it on. But I guess that's the best place to start. And Steve, what did you make of the board's decision? Probably not completely unexpected. But how do you feel about the whole kind of carry on regardless attitude we seem to be getting?
I think in boxing, where there's a will, there's a way. When there's money to be made, there's egos involved. Heads are going to clash all the time. Robert Smith was there in Belfast at the weekend. They obviously have their opinion. Eddie, Sauerlands have theirs as well. It's become as much about the legal side of things now and a battle of wills as it is making the fight itself. People are talking to me about things like BBA and the PBA. I don't even know who they are being involved. That's going to open the absolute...
If you don't know who they are, we've got a real problem.
That's opening the floodgates. They're not going to do anything like that, I wouldn't have thought. We have seen precedent before for these type of things. Remember Chisora against Hay? You were probably at that, weren't you? Luxembourg Commission, I think, back in the day. They can get the fight happening if so, but has to be under the British border control, as far as I'm concerned, if it's going to be in this country and if it's going to be legal. But at the moment, heads are butting. But as I said, where there's a will, there's a way. I think it'll still happen. They always do in boxing in the end. They always happen.
Yeah, Chisora Luxembourg is a bit of a strange one because I kind of took a stance against it because it was promoting a non-board sanctioned fight on UK soil with the Luxembourg Boxing Commission. It caused me to lose one of my extra side hustles I had at the time, working for Frank Warren on Box Nation. I think I knew when I posted a lengthy blog slagging the fight off that it would cost me a bit of money, and it sure did. And Warren took a while to forgive me. We're all on good terms now. I think that's the first of two separate occasions he's effectively fired me. Maybe we could talk about the other one another time.
You're hard to get rid of, aren't you?
Apparently so, yeah. Like sexual transmitted diseases. I'm led to believe. But yeah, so I've never watched it. I've never watched Chisora. I haven't watched it then. Haven't watched it since. People kept saying, "Oh, you'll definitely watch it." And I haven't. I think it's just bloody mindedness now. I don't think I'd be sacrificing any principles if I went back and watched it now. But I never have. So that's a little aside there. But this one, yeah, Eddie Hearn was quizzed about the PBA by Eamon, poor sickly Eamon. He wasn't poor and sickly then. But asked him over the weekend after the show, what do you think of the PBA? And he said, I think they're a very professional, well-run organisation who've got a big future in the sport. So we wait to understand if that future will be with Matchroom at any point. Harry Clark says, unless this is an announcement, which I doubt highly, we're all waiting for Eddie Hearn to sort out EUBANK. And we'll talk about that in a minute because there is still this idea that EUBANK has not signed. But I think a lot of that is due to the lack of board sanctioning of the fight because EUBANK has a British boxing licence. Frank Warren, before the rapprochement with Eddie Hearn, was saying he expects EUBANK Jr. to have his licence taken away if he were to fight under the PBA or another commission on UK soil against Benn. Vyacheslav Glaskov, not the real one. We get this a lot, Steve. You'll get used to it. A lot of average to decent heavyweights. People take the names of them in the live chat. Mm-hmm. Eddie will get back the £1 million he said he lost when the fight got cancelled. Thunder Road says, started talking about Eubank Ben, but the poll is on Joshua Davison. Danny is doing his best. Thunder Road, I need you to start telling people to give us the thumbs up. It's always effective, and you haven't done it yet. But yes, Mod Mother Quiver did unfortunately put up the wrong poll. She's been told to stand in the corner for the next 5 minutes, and then we're going to let her come back in. Yeah, there we go. 70 watching. Let's hit the thumbs up for the lads. The lads. But yeah, Steve, what do you make of that? Because surely it's a big risk, not just for Eubank Jr., but also for his team, trainer, manager, perhaps, Calla Sauerland, who's his promoter. They've all got British Boxing Board of Control licenses. Warren says that since H-Zora, those rules against other British Boxing Board licensed boxers fighting on other sanctioning body shows have been tightened right up. So what do you make of it? And do you think that's enough of a threat to stop Eubank and the people around him earning what will be the biggest purse of his career?
No, I don't think it will be, to be honest. The licensing thing is an issue. Again, you went back to H-Zora. People were threatened at the time. You'll have your license taken off you. We saw people with Irish licenses participating. Obviously, they're exempt from those kind of sanctions. If it's going to be on UK soil, maybe they'll come to some kind of agreement. And then they'll say, oh, you can get the license back after so long. Or boxers are so inactive these days. You could say you're going to get the license taken off you for a year or something. They might not even fight within that year. So I think they'll be able to work around that. But it is a bit of a deterrent to some people who might be a bit worried about that. Maybe trainers or seconds or something. But for the fighters themselves, I think they'll be able to work around it. And Calla, I think, has the license, or Nissa has the license, maybe one of the two of them. So obviously they'll be under pressure as well. But you might see them turn up on the undercard of like a Misfits or something, Danny, or something maybe on YouTube. We could get them on the undercard there. But yeah, the license issue is a problem, but they'll work around it. I'm confident of that.
The undercard of Misfits, not even the main event. I love it. Hassan, really good question. I think this is from Hassan. I'll tackle it first, and then Steve can jump in. Hassan says, who is more likely to become a world champion between Eubank Jr. and Ben? That is by no means a given, as both could end up without winning a title based on the talent in their respective divisions. That is a real tough one. The thing is, we expect Terence Crawford at some point to vacate all of his belts. I know one's gone already. And perhaps move up to super welterweight for the rematch with Spence or a fight with another big star. I know Canelo's been talked about. Not sure how likely that is. But there is such a crop of talent at welterweight coming up behind Crawford. You've still got Spence if he decides to stay there. Boots Ennis, of course, is mentioned a lot. Stanionis is a very good fighter. Virgil Ortiz as well. So there's a number of really good fighters at welterweight. I think middleweight's not quite as deep as welterweight. And I think you look at the guy, his name escapes me at the moment, but the Janibek beat to unify the belts recently. And you'd probably give Eubank Jr. a decent chance. Like the form that Eubank Jr. showed in the rematch with Liam Smith, you'd probably give him a decent chance against that guy. But he's no longer got a belt, obviously. So he'd be going up against a Janibek or a Charlo, who's been inactive, obviously, until recently. I don't know. I think I would have to say Ben, purely because he's younger. He's a lot earlier in his career, and he's going to get more opportunities. Whereas Eubank Jr. has already had that world title crack against George Groves, of course, and came up short. So, you know, he might be he's nearer to the end of his career than the beginning, whereas you might not say that about Conor Benn. But it's by no means a confident pick either way. Steve, what do you think?
I'm not so sure because middleweight is very weak, as you mentioned at the moment. Gualtieri lost to Janibek, gave up his belt. But if Gualtieri is the kind of standard, I would look at Eubank and say he's got a good chance of beating him. So all of a sudden, an opportunity out the blue, a broken belt, someone drops a belt, an interim, if you're counting them, might come available. And Eubank could find himself within the next fight or in the next couple of fights getting the opportunity to contest that. So even though he is advanced in years, he's 34 now, I think he's on enough of a stage now, coming off the back of a really good win. If that belt opportunity presented itself, he could definitely slide in and win one. I wouldn't put it past him at all. As for Ben, again, people say, oh, it's very difficult to become a world champion, which it is, but you could just get a splintered belt, a vacant belt. An organisation all of a sudden gives you an opportunity, and Ben's fighting against a weak opponent, and not the likes of Ennis, who I think is an absolute destroyer, not the likes of Spence, who knows how much he's got left, but some of the guys down the pecking order a little bit. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that people can pick up belts. We've seen some pretty weak belt holders in the past. So why not Eubank and Ben? But definitely for Eubank, I think the opportunity's there. I'm looking down the rankings here. Elijah Garcia's in at number 8, really talented fighter. Carlos Adames, Austin Williams. You know, Eubank would fancy his chances against some of these guys.
live research there, real time. This is what you get with Steve Wellings, someone of the caliber of Steve Wellings on SO
I
Live.
don't remember anything. That's the thing.
Yeah, this is what you get when you employ people with bad memories. No, I'm joking. It's very, very refreshing to see that. We'll go to the chat shortly, but there's a poll up. The right one this time. Mod Mother Quiver has left the corner that we put her in. No one puts Quiver in the corner, not for more than 5 minutes anyway. And the poll is, do you care if Eubank Ben is sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control? Are you asked, basically? Will you still watch it either way? I'm not trying to push you in any direction with that, but does it mean something to you? I mean, I like to think we get a cross-section of pretty hardcore boxing fans on SO Live. So is this something that offends you? Just, do you care? Is it a factor for you? Let us know in the poll. Vyacheslav Glaskov says, it seems an endgame move if true. Do they expect this purse to be big enough for all involved to potentially retire unless trainers, promoters move and get foreign licenses? Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one because obviously Frank Warren, as we alluded to, was threatened with all sorts of stuff with H. Chisora on the Luxembourg Commission. And Warren's still a license holder, still putting on regular shows. So maybe the threat isn't quite as serious as some would lead you to believe. But also, Conor Benn, for example, has already got a foreign license. He's got a license in the US. But that's what I believe the board rejected, was his application to box here as coming in on a foreign license. But yeah, they said it's not appropriate because the appeal process from themselves and from UCAD against the independent panel's decision to lift Conor Benn's suspension is ongoing. And they said it wouldn't be right to consider or grant his application while that process is ongoing. Tony Lyon says Conor Benn will be a champion. He's got all the tools to be a champion and has serious aggressiveness and power to top it off. Thunder Road, similar to what I said, I think, says Eubank is 34 and is chasing money fights instead of belts. I'd go with Ben, who's only 27. Jack Dutton, I wonder if the winner of Eubank Ben could fight Janibek. The last I heard, Jamel Charlo might be fighting Benavidez sometime next year. Yeah, I mean, Janibek seems to be called out by pretty much everyone because, you know, he's shown a willingness to fight whoever's up there for it. But I don't know. I'd make Janibek a favourite against Eubank or Ben, regardless of who comes out on top in that fight. I don't think Ben's a genuine middleweight for a start. And I also don't feel Eubank shown enough, even with the rematch win over Liam Smith, which was a career best performance from him, to show that he'd be able to take Janibek, who's in his prime, and looking better with every fight. Kevin Worrell says there's been worse fighters than Eubank or Ben that's become world champion. Yeah. Let's talk about stating the obvious, Kevin. I mean, come on. We could all reel off some of the worst world champions we know, worst world champions in history, but it does seem like the divisions they're in, particularly welterweight, is a pretty deep division. And just for the context of this particular episode, we are only counting the big four world title belts. None of your WBA regular or IBOs, unfortunately. Tony Lyons, Eubank ain't bothered about being a champion, in my opinion. He's just wanting to get paid as much as he can before he retires. Who can blame him? That's what I'm looking for before I retire. I'm looking for the ability to retire. That would be a start.
I agree with that, Danny. Just quickly, sorry, I was going to say, he's like on the periphery sometimes, isn't he? Why would he fight a Janibek when he can fight a Ben or a Kell Brook? Or, you know, it's like a name, the way he fought DeGale. Why would he go in against the Janibek? That's what Kevin's point is a good one, I think.
See, Kevin, you got the Steve Wellings endorsement there, mate. You want to frame that. You don't get many of those. Toby Bartlett says, didn't Eubank Jr. already turn down the chance to fight Janibek recently, saying he was concentrating on another direction? No, wasn't that Liam Smith? Wasn't he the mandatory for Janibek? And then he turned it down to have the Eubank Jr. rematch instead. Because obviously it was similar to what Steve said there, it's a much bigger money fight. But I could be wrong about that. I often am. I don't do the live research like Steve, so I'm leaving myself open to mistakes. Kevin Worrell says, we're not counting Eubank's IBO belt then. We're certainly not. Or his WBA regular. I was thinking of Eubank with both of those, funnily enough, because he has won both. I was there when he won that WBA regular, actually. JD, why aren't the tickets available yet for Joshua and Wilder fights in Saudi? Any idea? None whatsoever, to be honest. The visa application process for the media hasn't started yet either. It's probably just one of those things where it takes a long time. I wouldn't read too much into it. Regarding Ben versus Eubank, not fussed about the fight. Frankly, it's a nothing fight. Well, I hope then you'll be voting. What would you vote in the poll then? Would you vote, yes, you do care if the boxing board... no, because you're saying it's a nothing fight, so surely you're not asked either way. Malcolm Marcel says, sanction. I that Robert Smith said he refused a boxing license. I'm going to try and decipher that. Yes, Robert Smith didn't. I don't think he turned down a British license application from Ben. I could be wrong, but I think he refused the application of Ben to box in the UK on a foreign license, which he's already got from the US. Jack Dutton, if the BBBofC are not sanctioning it, it means it can't be in England. Then yes, I do care about it not being sanctioned by the BBBofC. It doesn't mean that, Jack. It means it can't be under board sanctioning. That's all. It can still take place in England with another body, the likes of the PBA, who we talked about earlier. But for some people, that would discredit it, and it may risk some of the people involved and their relationship with the Board of Control and their licenses going forward. Malcolm Marcel's retracted his message now, the one that I was finding hard to decipher. I wish you'd done that 2 minutes earlier, Malcolm. Kerry Devine says, it's a must-win. Ben Jr. and Chris, the arrangement, Eubank Jr., Ben all the way. Not really sure about that one. JD, well, obviously, I'll still watch it, though. Well, there you go. I think we all will. Thunder Road, looking forward to having Billy Joe Saunders as an undercard on Eubank Ben. Yeah, I mean, I think that's been touted, hasn't it? Just a little bit of kind of half-breaking news. It seemed before Billy Joe Saunders re-signed with Matchroom not too long ago, it did seem like he was open to working with Boxer. I know that was all that controversy with him and Ben Shalom revealing messages, private messages and so on. But there was talk, there were rumours of him coming back on a Boxer show in December against Shakan Pitters. I can reveal that now because we know it's not going to happen. Rebar says Eubank is an embarrassment. Glaskov says commercial value is probably the best predictor for becoming world champ nowadays. Well, it's certainly a good predictor for getting the opportunities to become a world champ. Thunder Road, when will Joshua Green make his debut on SO Live when either Danny or Eamon aren't available? We do ask Josh. We didn't this time, Steve. You were the first choice. But we do ask Josh sometimes, but he doesn't just work for Seconds Out. He also works for our darts channel, Tungsten Towels. I say our channel. I don't own it, but it's part of the same multi-channel network as Seconds Out, and he's currently there. There's apparently a big darts tournament going on at the moment. I don't really watch much darts, but it's really important, and Josh is there. Ben needs to admit his wrongdoing and just move on. It says Mayute. It's difficult because he truly believes he hasn't done anything wrong. So, yeah. Who else? Backy says, what's up, my white brothers? Full Steve Bunce there. And then says, someone needs to put Eubank on the back foot where he belongs. Conor Peds is an embarrassment. Wow. We haven't really talked about the PD adverse findings side of this. So Boxing News, who, you know, we'll be honest here, they are a competitor of ours. They're now in the online video environment. I used to work for them, obviously, for many years, and still, you know, a lot of respect for the people that work there and the magazine itself. They were recently forced to put out a retraction for some comments they'd made about Conor Benn and evidence being put before the board and so on and so forth. Ben is still very adamant that he is innocent and that he can prove it. The board are obviously wanting to let the appeal process walk through. Steve, what do you make of that? Not just the innocence or guilt, but also the desire to go through with this Eubank fight before due process is you know, completed.
No, I think show me the evidence. You know, I think the due process is there for a reason. There's systems in place to see what's happened, what people have done. You can't just clear yourself as a boxer these days, or maybe you can clear yourself as a boxer when there's something happening. We've seen that in other areas, but show the evidence, present it to the bodies, and they will make their decision. There's some entities in boxing that have a lot of power, a lot of financial clout, so you can't really take them on. And sometimes the likes of the boards and the drug testing companies are at a loss. They're on the back foot because they've got this money and this relentless legal process constantly coming at them all the time. So it is very difficult. But as you said, due process is there, so it has to be followed through. If he's innocent, or whoever it is in question is innocent or guilty, you'd have to think it will come out in the wash. Trying to make a fight, whether it's under board regulation or not, when it hasn't been proven or you know, the process hasn't taken place, I don't know. It just muddies the water for me and leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
Now, I like this. The chat is policing itself. So nature's healing. Big Mac says, boxing is a joke. How come Dillian White gets away with it? Where is he? And then JD responds, Dillian is going through the due process. Hasn't got away with anything yet. Don't really need to say anything now. Tony Lyon says, I honestly don't believe Conor has used anything that can or does enhance himself in the ring. Are you basing that because you're not a fan of his performances? Is that what you're trying to say? Is there a bit of shade there? Yeah, I mean, we don't know. We don't know for certain. We can't know. You know, I like Conor a lot. I've known him for quite a long time. I know Tony Sims really well, and I'd struggle to believe he'd knowingly do anything like that. However, you have to put that aside and maintain journalistic impartiality and look for evidence, facts. We've just ended the poll. Do you care if Eubank Ben is sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control? It's a very close one. 51% say they do care, and 48% say no. So maybe it not being sanctioned by the Board of Control could harm its success as a pay-per-view. I honestly don't think it will, but it could. Mayute says, do you remember that video of the qualified doctor saying how easy it is to get away with doping, and then it got taken down off YouTube within 24 hours? Yeah, I mean, I didn't have time to note down all the things that he said beforehand. I was looking for more specific information where you could get really ripped without, you know, eating well or doing any training, and I never got to that part, unfortunately. Backy says Conor makes excuses and he should just fight Boots and take the hiding he deserves. Why is his punishment fighting Boots? You know, surely he's going to fight Eubank, so maybe back Eubank to give him a beating if that's what you want. Although, you know, I can understand why you wouldn't be as confident about that one. To be fair to Conor, judging from his social media, he does seem to be willing to fight pretty much everyone. I think he's called everyone out that I can think of, both at welterweight and at middleweight in the last couple of weeks. So I think he's clearly trying to show Eubank Jr. as well that there are other options out there for him if Eubank Jr. is wavering on signing that contract. So we've kind of talked about this subject quite a lot. It will continue to unfold. Keep an eye out on Seconds Out. We'll be at all the major shows this week. Prograis Haney, which we'll be talking about a bit later. And also Bournemouth, Chris Billam-Smith, Mathieu Masternak, top of the bill there. So keep an eye on Seconds Out because we'll be asking all the major players about Eubank Ben and also plenty of other subjects. But we are going to move on now because it was an eventful weekend. We saw one Irish boxing cult hero announce his retirement in Tyrone McKenna. He's given us a lot of entertaining nights. So we thank him for his service and wish him the very best as he sails off into the sunset with his faculties apparently intact, which is always heartening to see. But another disappointment for Irish fans on the Belfast show at the weekend was, of course, in the main event where hometown hero Mick Conlan was upset in brutal fashion by the unfancied by many Jordan Gill. And while a lot of people were quick to focus on the heroic Jordan Gill story, especially with his moving post-fight interview, your thoughts have to turn to the flip side of that coin, and that's Conlan, who's now lost 2 world title shots, punishing defeats. The first one less so because it was more the end that was punishing, and he'd been dominating the fight up to that point against Lee Wood. Maybe not up to that point. I think Wood started to come into it around round 8 or 9. And then obviously against Lopez, which was pretty brutal. And now losing to Jordan Gill, which, no disrespect to Jordan, is a step below that world title scene. He hasn't made any announcement, Conlan, just yet. Would you expect him to carry on with his career, Steve, at this point?
I think that he actually might carry on with his career. He had a lot of soul searching to do after the Lopez fight. And as you mentioned, when he lost to Wood by knockout, when he lost to Lopez, there were world title losses in world title fights. But this one against Gill just felt different to me because there was no world title on the line. It was supposed to be the beginning of a sort of rebuilding process. A lot of people called for him to retire after the Lopez fight. It was a damaging defeat. I felt that the Wood fight took such a lot out of him. I was talking about this last night, actually. The last 20 seconds of the Wood fight was just a sliding doors moment in the career of Michael Conlan. He dropped him early. He was close to winning the fight. He sees that fight through. He gets the world title. He's buoyed with confidence. He's finally fulfilled his dream, the confidence everybody had in him. The fact he got knocked out, rebuilt, came back against Lopez, and has now been stopped by Gill. Retirement, I don't think he will retire. I don't think he'll want to go out like that. He's a big cult hero in Belfast. I've been at all the big fights myself. But Jordan Gill came in. He said to me and another one of the guys on Thursday at the press conference, no pressure on me whatsoever. He was devastated after the Kiko loss. You mentioned it there. Moving post-fight interview. He's rebounded significantly from that. But as for Mick, he's turning into his brother a little bit, Jamie, the Irish Gatti, one of my favourite fighters, going toe-to-toe with people. Where's the elusiveness? Did Gill take that out of him? Did he hurt him too much that he couldn't run? He stood and traded even though he's not a big puncher. And I wonder, Danny, I ask a question to you. I'll flip it right round. If he were to retire now, how would Mick rate his career overall compared to what was expected when he turned pro back in 2017? They were talking multiple world titles at different weights, unifications, an inevitable clash with Shakur Stevenson down the line. None of that was managed to be achieved. No world title, it appears now. How do you think he would rate his career if he hung up his gloves tomorrow?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think in many ways it harks back to Frankie Gavin. And you could say, I mean, he was an outstanding amateur. Maybe not quite as much was expected of him in the pros as of Conlan, but he would say even now that he never quite fulfilled his potential. And that's despite being a British champion and being involved in some really big, exciting fights. And he was an incredible amateur. But it's a bit different in that Frankie would admit himself that discipline was sometimes an issue, the way he lived life outside the ring in terms of diet and things like that as well. Whereas with Conlan, there don't seem to be those question marks. What I would say, though, you were saying, where's the elusiveness and why was he standing and trading? This was his first fight with a new trainer in Pedro Diaz, who is known for being quite slick, but also did work with Miguel Cotto for quite a while. So maybe it is that kind of front foot counter-punching style more, or maybe it's just getting used to working with a new trainer as well and getting used to their strategy and molding it with your own. You know, I think he looked really good at times, Conlan, when he was with Adam Booth. For whatever reason, he decided a change was needed. You could understand after the way results have been. But yeah, I mean, I can understand him wanting to carry on because he'll feel that the amount of talent he's got deserves more than what he's achieved in the pro game. But I do honestly believe that there are some excellent amateur fighters who just aren't suited to the professional side of the sport. So it's a tough one. But I would like to see him retire too early rather than too late. You know, he's a lovely guy, similar to Tyrone McKenna in that sense, you know, and you don't want to see him go on too long if they can help it. And I'm sure Conlan's made, I'm not prying into his private finances, but I'm sure he's made a lot of money. You know, he's been on those big cards in MSG and in Ireland as well. He's had some world title fights. I'm sure he's pretty much set up. He's got the promotional side with Conlan Boxing as well. So does he really need to carry on? Mayute says, looks like Conlan's punch resistance has gone. JD says Conlan will be gutted with how his career turned out. Glaskov says, do you think rumours of MTK involvement in the Belfast card? It felt like a vintage MTK show. Interesting to think they're still influential in sport. I mean, Steve, you were there. I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of people that were formerly involved with MTK in some way, shape or form that were involved in that card. But that might just be a case of Belfast or Irish boxing. There's always going to be some links there, isn't there? But what did you notice anything untoward?
Well, not untoward, no. Like you say, same faces, same characters have been appearing for years, and mixed headlining in the Odyssey, whether it's Frank or Eddie or back in the day MTK or whatever. You know, you're going to have that kind of feel. The atmosphere was really good. Maybe not as strong as it has been in the past, you know, as people start to dwindle, as the losses build up. But as for the show itself, I thought it was really good. Eddie was obviously looking to build a base in Belfast. Not really sure how that will work out now. But as for the trainer thing, just briefly, you mentioned there, I'm not so sure the strategy, what they worked on possibly and what they came out to do in the first round, maybe went out the window when he took that left hand in the second round, and not so much to do with Pedro Diaz, but Mick trying to fight his way for success, try every inch of success he really had to work so hard for. The uppercuts, the body shots were working. He did damage Gill's nose a little bit, but I wonder whether it sort of needs must in the ring rather than Pedro Diaz's influence. It was more Conlan thinking, I'm going to have to try and take it to him here and turn things around. So the strategy might have gone out the window is what I'm saying, I think.
Now, while Conlan fell to a surprise defeat, Ryan Garcia, King Ryan, came back after that defeat to Tank Davis. And he did get the job done. He did come out with a stoppage victory. Well done to him on that. But his performance raised as many questions as answers, particularly his use of the old Philly shell, the shoulder roll defense, which didn't impress many boxing observers out there. Steve, what did you make of Ryan Garcia's comeback performance?
I thought it was good, actually. Wasn't that impressed with the Philly shell shoulder roll. It was more of a back roll. Don't really know what he was doing. A stronger referee could have said, come on, son, what are you doing? You're turning your back. Duarte was hitting him on the back. But that was because he was turning himself around so much, trying to protect himself to the body, some people were saying. If that's the case, that's not a strategy going forward. At least he's sticking with Derek James, trying to listen to what he's saying. I thought he looked fast. The footwork was good. Didn't stand in one place, which is what Duarte wanted him to do. And then at the end, he put the punctuation mark on it with a lovely shot. Duarte did the old 9.5 trick of trying to get up, looking like he wanted to carry on. I'm a bit of a sadist. I like to see fights go to their natural conclusion. If I was the ref, I would have let him continue. But King Roy put a good performance on, actually. I think coming back off the Davis loss, he needed to show something as for his mental state as much as anything else. And he's got the beef going on with Oscar and B-Hop as well. I think, as I was saying again last night, he will be the B-side in other people's stories, I think, as he was with Davis, helping him elevate to that next level. He'll be involved in pay-per-views. He'll be a name. They'll put him in with Rolando Romero. He won't win them all, but he will be part of some big nights because of the things he brings to the table.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you say about beefing with Oscar and Hopkins, which was a lot of fun for us in the build-up. He seems to be beefing with everyone. Didn't he say he's sure he could beat Shakur Stevenson? He's sure he could beat Tank in a rematch? I mean, he's got a lot of confidence for someone who has not looked great for some time. Although I thought Oscar's attempt to kind of gaslight Ryan Garcia after his criticism was reprehensible, to be honest, especially from someone like Oscar who's been through his own struggles as well.
Oscar could have been talking to himself, I think, with some of the things he was saying.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe he does. Maybe he needs to have a long kind of chat with himself. That wouldn't be the worst idea. Now, as some of you might have noticed, last topic is Prograis versus Haney preview. That's been up on the screen for a while. I'm not sure why. Quiver's going to have to go back in the corner in a minute, I think. But we are now finally ready to talk about it. And it's a huge fight that seems to have gone maybe slightly under the radar. But it is the, until recently, undisputed lightweight champion in Devin Haney, stepping up a weight class to 140 pounds to take on the WBC champion and one of the best, if not the best, at that weight in the world in Regis Prograis. Both incredibly talented fighters. I mean, it should be bigger than it is, I feel like. But I'm looking forward to it. Steve, what about you?
I'm looking forward to it as well. I think the clash of styles, maybe some people are looking at thinking it could be a bit of a cagey affair, tactical, maybe both of them standing off, not willing to make a mistake. Prograis is a very talented fighter. He's had a strange career, I think. He's been feeding on scraps a lot of the time. I always wonder why no promoter, up until the latter stages of his career now, have ever taken a punt on him, especially the PBC. Seemed like he was made for that. Came out the wrong side of a tough fight with Josh Taylor. Thought it was very close. Thought Taylor won. I expected that to maybe be the making of him. Again, he sort of went back into obscurity for someone of his talent. This is his big chance. He might not get another one because people haven't taken a punt on him in the past. So if he can get past Haney, it'd be an absolutely massive win. But yeah, I think it could be kind of one punch, bit of grabbing, bit of holding. Might not be the prettiest on the eye. Maybe that's why, Danny, people aren't as intrigued, but I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Will we see loads of clinches and stuff? Haney tends to be like that when he's fighting a real kind of pressure fighter who's in his face. But I think Prograis quite technical, albeit carries a real strong punch. And I think it's interesting to see how Haney's punch resistance holds up at the new weight class, particularly after we saw him rocked by, was it Jorge Linares who rocked him down at 135? So it's going to be interesting if he can take those shots up at 140 or if he even gets hit much. I mean, Prograis is a smart fighter. He's accurate. He's explosive. I think a lot of people are expecting Haney to win this, and I'm not sure if that's fair. I don't know. I think it's a 50-50.
I think the weight will help him, though, won't it? Because he was tight at 135. I think he's a big dude. True. I think it might actually help him, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. It's a real tough fight to call. I think overall talent, Haney's the better fighter. I think if he fills out well at 140 and he's strong and his punch resistance is good, and again, you know, the extra weight should help with that, not having to drain himself, then I would expect him to come out on top in a close decision. But then, I don't know, seeing Prograis against Josh Taylor getting edged out, you'd think that he wouldn't let that happen to him again. So, I don't know. I'll pick Haney for the sake of argument, but who would you go for? Who are you going for?
Yeah, Haney on points. I just hope Prograis can take that opportunity and really put it to him. If he can get past the jab, it'll be interesting because Haney's jab is excellent. He's a good body puncher as well, as is Prograis. I thought Lomachenko beat Haney. Prograis is not going to be bringing that kind of energy, that kind of tactical style as Lomachenko did, which leads me to believe Prograis might just stand off at times too much rather than putting it on him. If he puts it on him and gets past the jab, anything could happen. And if he touches that chin, as you said, Linares, other people in the past have touched the chin, then it could be interesting. But Haney's the master of just getting those octopus tentacles around you and grabbing onto you. And Prograis can't lose heart at that. And he is experienced, so you wouldn't like to think he would.
if Haney does come out on top, given what he achieved at lightweight also, where does he kind of rank in your pound-for-pound list at that point?
I think he's got to be pretty high, hasn't he? Undisputed at the previous weight. Obviously, it was against Cambosos, who pulled the upset over Teofimo Lopez. You'd like to see Haney go on and pick up the names, really. He's had the titles. He's got the win over Loma. He'll have a win over Prograis as well. He's starting to get those names on his record, starting to build a nice resume. I don't know. I'm useless at pound for pounds. Things like maybe some people have him top 10, top 5. Some people maybe even top 3. He's right up there. Shall we say that? If he has another good name on his record, and then move on to fight the bigger guys, I'll put him top 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's how far up he can go. You know, is he looking at the likes of Crawford and Spence and thinking, you know, welterweight's probably my limit? Yeah, but he's still a young guy, isn't he, Haney? So he could fill out a fair bit. He's still very young and young in his career as well. But if he can make it up to welterweight, could be some mouth-watering fights up there. And then he could really push the envelope in terms of pound for pound. But it's hard at the moment. There's so many quality fighters who are doing it through the weight classes. You know, Canelo's often mentioned. You've got Bivol, who's been dominant in one weight division. You've got Usyk, cruiserweight and heavyweight now. We'll wait to see what happens in February between him and Fury. But it seems like a good era to be a boxing fan. I know people complain that the best don't always fight the best, which is a strange time to raise it when we saw Spence Crawford only a few months ago.
I think they do, yeah.
Yeah. But aside from that, I just think we've got a crop of real elite boxers at the moment. And that's a good glimpse of the sport's future, because there seems to be that crop of exciting fighters coming behind them as well. The likes of Boots Ennis and Matias, and there's loads. You know, I could go on and on.
Love Matias, he's classy.
Yeah, really good fighter. But they're all kind of coming hot on the heels. They're becoming contenders, it seems, a lot earlier in their careers now as well. You know, they're not having to do 30 fights before they get a world title shot anymore. And that's mainly, I suppose, because of the proliferation of belts. But maybe that's one positive side of it. We're getting to see them tested early, and we're getting to see more of the elite fights early on. Yeah. Nobody's beating Bivol, says Tony Lyons. I only need to say his name. Tony Lyons is there straight away defending him. We love Bivol too, mate.
He's classy.
Except when he let Gilberto Ramirez hang around for too long in Abu Dhabi, and we all wanted to go and catch our flights home. Aside from that, and that was more the broadcasters, because there was a gap of something like 2 hours or maybe an hour and a half between the chief support and the main event to satisfy local TV. Not local to Abu Dhabi, like local to wherever. I don't know if it was US.
Like the old Frank Maloney cards again, isn't it?
Oh, mate. Kelly Maloney now, of course.
Kelly Maloney, yeah.
Good old Kelly. All right, well, really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Steve, can't thank you enough for stepping in for the ailing Eamon, which isn't easy to say. But no, really appreciate it. I hope you'll join us again. Oh, the boxing guru. Here we go. He had to get in right at the end. Great to see Mr. Wellings bringing much needed class to this awful channel. Although I'm not sure why he's wasting his valuable time with the likes of Flexen. Steve, do you want to tell Tommy why you're wasting your valuable time with the likes of me? We didn't pay him. I mean,
I've got nothing better to do on a Monday evening, to be honest with you. I've got 3 kids out there making a racket, so I thought I'd jump on the stream here and pretend I was doing a bit of work.
There is no greater endorsement than a dad trying to avoid his kids. Harry Clark says, why are you on your last topic already? You haven't been online long. I mean, we've been online for about 50 minutes, Harry. We normally do between 50 minutes and an hour. Sorry if that's not long enough for you. I understand, you know, people like to watch us. But we will be back next Monday, hopefully back at our normal time of 5 p.m. with less or fewer technical difficulties. And maybe an Eamon Khan restored to 100%, we shall see. But if not, it's good to know that Steve Wellings is on call to avoid his kids and come and join us. So, guys, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you all soon. Cheers.
Thank you.